Hello, hello. Hey, welcome. Welcome everybody. To today's stream. Yeah, welcome if you're new here. And of course, welcome back if you have been here before. I've been doing a lot of streaming lately, so so hopefully you've been here before. My name is Axel from Get Speaking English. And during this lesson, we're going to be checking out a part 3 task similar to the ones that are on, part 3 of the B2 first, the C1 advanced exam. And we're going to be talking about food. We're going to be talking about what we eat. If you're not aware, lately I've been talking a lot about sustainability on social media. So this is going to be related to one of the articles I looked at a week or two ago. So we're going to sort of look at that, hopefully learn some new vocabulary. You'll be able to participate as well through the chat. So I have Facebook chat here, so you can participate there. You can throw out your ideas and contribute to our notes that way. I also have YouTube open as well, so you can also participate on YouTube as well, so I can see both of those chats. So as we go through, there will be opportunities for you to make some contributions to the notes, and hopefully we can brainstorm some language and for ways for talking about this task that we're going to check out. So just a heads up that this lesson is aimed at preparing students for the B2 first and the C1 advanced Cambridge exams. However, a lot of the words and the phrases and things we'll be talking about are also incredibly useful if you want to study for an IELTS exam, for example, or a TOEFL exam. They're also really useful for general English exams, right? And for anybody who just wants to get speaking English at an upper intermediate to an advanced level, right? And I know I even have some students that are, aiming for proficiency. So all of that language is really, really useful for those sort of advanced levels. And what we're going to do here is we are going to do a bit of a warm-up first. We're going to review some food-related vocabulary, and then we're going to look at a part 3 task, again, similar to the one on part 3 of the speaking paper of the B2 first exam and the C1 advanced exam. And we'll be able to hopefully brainstorm some language and some ideas, just ways to talk about the task together. I will put all of our notes together so we can have that as a reference. And then after this video is done, I will put all those notes together, upload it with the video on YouTube so you could always review this afterwards and things like that. And so you will have that to study, so hopefully that would be super helpful. So feel free to say hello in the chat. Let me know if you're alive or not. I really appreciate when people do that. And I know I mentioned briefly too that this whole lesson is kind of related to one of the articles I looked at the other day. I did a live stream where I read this article about eating insects. This lesson is not just going to be about eating insects, but food in general. But I am doing conversation classes right now based on these articles. So the material we're looking at today actually came from the lesson material that I had prepared for the conversation about food and eating insects. So if you want to speak even more about this topic and about food and sustainability in general, you are more than welcome to book a conversation class with me and do that, and I would love to speak with you directly. Okay. Anyways, so as a bit of a warm-up, let's look at some of these vocabulary words that we use for describing food. And some of these words are really good They indicate, you know, if a food is really good. Others indicate if a food is not good. So why don't we sort these a little bit? Let's talk about maybe the meaning of these, see what other language comes up, and let's kind of, you know, list them if it's a good description or a bad description. So I'm gonna do that. So good, make a space for the good category, bad here. So we have that. Yeah, so feel free to give me your ideas, and I'm happy to put them up here. So first, delicious, right? So I think delicious is a word that we're all pretty familiar with, right? So, you know, let's put that in the, I suppose, the good category. And move on to maybe something maybe that we don't, more words that maybe we don't quite know as well. How about rotten? Does anybody have sort of a definition for what rotten might mean? So rotten, if a food is rotten, feel free to let me know in the chat what a description for rotten, and whether you would consider that sort of a good word or a bad word for food. Yeah, let me know what you think. I mean, for me, if a food is considered rotten, I mean, typically it's old, right? So it's not fresh, right? We might refer to some, like a very new product, a very new food product as being fresh. It's the opposite of that, right? Not fresh at all, very old. And we might say that it is considered, it's spoiled. So something spoiled, very old, basically sort of like a synonym for like ruined almost, but we wouldn't say that a food is ruined, but we would definitely say that it's spoiled, especially if it's past its expiration date. And I see too, yeah, when it's gone bad, that would be another sort of way that we would describe it. Exactly. So food that's gone bad. Another great collocation there. Exactly. So we're definitely going to put this in the bad category, I think. So something rotten. Yeah, when it's old and spoiled and things like that. How about a delicacy? How would you describe a delicacy? Any ideas what we might say? And again, if we would categorize this as a good descriptive, like a good food or bad food. Delicacy. There's a pronunciation. You know, sometimes a rare food, right? And something rare is something that's not common, right? Maybe hard to find, right? So yeah, so potentially rare, and maybe also maybe it's potentially really expensive as well. Yeah, depending on this, you know, the different cultures and things like that, right? So some foods might be considered really special. You would only eat them during a certain time, maybe during a festival or something. And it's definitely a good quality. I definitely agree with you. So we're gonna put it over here. We're gonna put it over in under the good under the good category. Let's see here. How about creamy? So food that is creamy. Maybe we could think of an example too of a food that is creamy as well. So something creamy. It's very, let's see, creamy. Sort of really soft, maybe. Soft and smooth. You know, like for example, like a puree is creamy. And I'm gonna get you a picture of something that is like a puree, like maybe like a blended soup or something. There's also an accent on here, actually. I don't know if I have it. Second here. Don't have it on my keyboard. There we go. Puree, very creamy, very blended. For example, we can see this. I don't know what this is, if this is like squash or potato or something, but it's very smooth, right? Very smooth, very soft texture, right? And I think this was definitely going to, you know, sort of like a good category. I don't know if you guys agree with me, because sometimes I feel that food texture, it really depends on your preference, right? And we all have different preferences, right? Yeah, exactly. It depends on whether, like, the person, right? So some people may not like food that is really creamy, right? They may put it underneath the bad category. Yeah, I definitely agree with that, with you. So if a food is creamy, it's not directly real. It does not need to have cream in it necessarily. Yeah, so it has nothing to do with it having cream in it. It's just a general word for describing something that is very smooth, very that's blended together really, really well. It's not too liquidy, so you can see here that there's still some like thickness to it. And it may or may not have cream added to it to help it get this consistency. So it does not need to have cream in it. Yeah, so it has nothing to do with a cream as like an ingredient, but has that nice texture. Yeah. No, it's a good question. So feel free to ask me questions as well too, so we can clarify some of these words, what they mean. Let's talk about mild here. So if something is considered mild, usually this is a descriptive word we might use to describe things that are spicy, or not even spicy, but like the level of spiciness. Yeah, because something mild is kind of like, it's like in between. It's very gentle, right? So maybe there's a slight flavor, but it's not too strong, or maybe there's a slight spiciness, but it's not too strong. So kind of easy to eat. Generally, you know, children and things like that probably would prefer food that's kind of mild, not really spicy, things like that. Yeah, not super spicy, exactly. So would you guys consider this like a good food, or like a good word or a bad word? What is your opinion? I'm actually not a fan of mild food. I like spice and I like flavor, so maybe in my mind it would be kind of a bad quality to have. So let me know what you think, where you guys would categorize this. We should almost have a vote or something. That'd be funny. I feel like generally this would probably be a good thing. Yeah, for you it's good because because you do not like spicy food. Yeah, I feel like for the most people, I mean it's pretty, yeah. It's subjective. Yeah, all of this is subjective, as in it depends on the person and their individual preferences. Yeah. So anything subjective depends on the person. I agree. Say with spicy, right? So food with maybe a lot of heat and a lot of strong flavor. Maybe filled with spices, right? Or, you know, chilies as well. And it feels hot in the mouth, right? Yeah, exactly. So it feels hot there. The adjective, right? Or it contains a lot of heat. There's a noun. Yeah, right. Yeah, for you it's bad. Yeah, it depends on the person. So for me, that would be a great quality. I would love that. But extreme spiciness could definitely be kind of a bad quality, right? Let's put it in here. Let's put it under the bad category. I think it depends on the cultures too, right? So I think in some cultures, it's really common to grow up eating lots of spicy food, lots of really hot food. And then other cultures, like where I'm from, a lot of people cannot tolerate spicy food. They cannot, yeah, they cannot tolerate spicy food. Or they have like low levels of tolerance. Yeah, so, yeah, you know, it's hard for them to digest and they can't really eat it. Yeah. So that's definitely a thing. How about if something is inedible? Inedible. Can spicy be said in other words except for aside from hot? Spicy, hot. There's a like piquant, but it's kind of more like a little bit spicy, but not too spicy. It's more like it's a pleasant level of heat. So it's kind of like a pleasant level of spiciness. So piquant is kind of a interesting little, kind of a fancy word. Yeah, it could also actually something piquant could also have a slightly sour smell as well too, or a little tangy. But yeah, that could potentially be something piquant. Thinking of other things too, potentially like peppery maybe. But yeah, I think those are kind of like the ones that I would use to describe spicy food. And inedible. So inedible. Any thoughts on what inedible means? So we kind of have we have the word, it's like the opposite of edible, which means something you could eat, right? Yeah, and then it's like something inedible, it's like the opposite, right? So we have like this prefix, this that negates it. So something that you cannot eat. Exactly. So something you cannot eat, maybe because it's just unsafe or unpleasant. Or maybe it's just basically something that's not fit for eating, you know? There are all sorts of things that you probably shouldn't ingest, right? So ingest as in like eat, put in your mouth, put in your body. Yeah, so lots of things that are completely inedible, right? Potentially poisonous as well, too, right? Yeah, we definitely shouldn't eat anything that's poisonous, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I definitely think something poisonous would be considered inedible. Definitely. Oh, did my keyboard's acting up. Anyways, yeah, exactly. So let's put this under the bad category. We'll put it under the bad category. Oh, my keyboard. There we go. We'll put it under the bad category. We'll put edible, something edible, underneath the good category, even though that was a different word that came up. And let's talk about one more of these, maybe. Let's talk about something. What about this word, tender here? If something is tender, do you know what kind of foods we might describe as tender? Like, what would be tender, and what foods might we use maybe to refer to it as being tender? Yeah, I always feel like people talk about meat as being tender. Particularly when it's easy, very easy to chew, right? Right, so chew that action with your teeth. So yeah, something very easy to chew, is kind of soft, right? It breaks apart really easily. Yeah, and I always feel like tender is a word that gets thrown around a lot when people are talking about eating meat and things like that. So vegetables could also be tender as well, too. It really has to do with like food that just basically food that is soft and easy to cook. Oops, easy to cook. Usually because it has been cooked for a very long time or because it is well cooked. Yeah, so anything like that that's very easy to chew and is kind of soft we can describe as being tender. So it usually gets used when talking about meat, but we could also refer to it for vegetables as well. You'll hear in recipes for a lot. You'll hear in recipes often, they'll be like, you know, cook the potatoes until they are tender and you can poke them with a fork or something like that. So when it gets that soft sort of consistency. And I would definitely think that this is kind of a positive quality, I think, for the most part. Let's put it up over here. Okay. All right, cool. Yeah. Are there any other words on here that are new, maybe, that we haven't talked about just before we move on? I don't want to spend all time talking about this, but so we have a specialty, for example, something raw. So something raw is uncooked in its natural space or in its natural state. Yeah, so a specialty. So a specialty kind of comes up sort of in two main ways, maybe. On one hand, often you might ask somebody, you know, what's your specialty, to say, like, what is the best thing you know how to cook, basically. So a specialty is kind of like a special dish. That's kind of like unique or special to a place, for example, but we could also talk about it for like a person, like it's like the best thing that they can cook. Or if you go out to restaurants, for example, the specialties are often sort of a list of specific foods that they are only serving that day or maybe that week. So yeah, the specialties are often items that they are serving only for a day, so for a very specific period of time. So they're kind of special, special foods. So yeah. Your signature dish too. Yeah, we could also ask people what their signature dish is as well too. So again, like the best thing that you know how to cook, something like that. Or a chef might have a signature dish as well. Yeah, exactly. The best dish someone knows how to cook. Exactly. Or like a chef or something. So yeah. Yeah, so all of these are really great. Exactly. We have what? So tough, right? The opposite of tender here. When it's hard to chew, right? Crunchy, something that makes a lot of noise, right? So something that makes a lot of noise when you eat it, so you like chomp away, you chew away. It's kind of this chomp away at something, a very informal way to say you chew at something. Or biting something. Yeah, lots of great words. How about bitter too? Let's talk about bitter really quickly. So something bitter, maybe it has a very sort of strong, like slightly unpleasant taste. Like coffee, for example, might be really bitter. Yeah, an apple. An apple is a good example of something that's very crunchy. Yeah. Something very crunchy, an apple for sure. Yeah, bitter. I don't know if I would call lemons as bitter. They're definitely sour. Like dark chocolate also is usually considered really bitter as well. Like, yeah, so coffee, like coffee without sugar or anything added to it. Really dark chocolate. It almost has sort of like this dry taste to it, kind of. A little bit unpleasant. I'm trying to think of like what other things might be considered bitter. Beer, I suppose too, like really dark beer could be considered as being bitter. Yeah. Kind of the opposite of sweet. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, typically you would add sweetness to something bitter to kind of balance it out, to offset the bitterness. But yeah, lots of great words though here for describing food. Uh yeah. So, all right, yeah. So let's move on. So that was like a great little recap of some useful vocabulary for talking about food. I did say though that we're going to talk about speaking part 3 for the B2 first and the C1 advanced exam. So if you're unaware, during the B2 first and the C1 advanced exam, you do this part of the exam with another candidate. So during the speaking paper, there will be another candidate in the room, possibly two. And during this part in particular, you're going to have a conversation with the other candidates. So you typically what happens is you will get a sheet of paper. There will be some sort of question in the middle. And then there will be 5 points sort of surrounding it. And the idea is that you're supposed to have a conversation with your partner. You're supposed to discuss the question while basically discussing these points in relation to the question. So here, for example, in this task here, we have, why might people choose not to eat these things? And we have animals, sugar, fish, insects, vegetables. So we have a couple different options. So you would have a conversation for 2 minutes about this, and then there would be a follow-up conversation, follow-up question that you would talk about for an additional minute based on this information. So just in general, during this part of the conversation or during this part of the exam, you don't want to repeat what your partner is saying. You want to try to be as original as possible, right? You want to keep your contribution short, though. You're going to be sort of assessed on your English, obviously, but also your ability to take part in a conversation, right? So your contribution should be a bit short. It's not a monologue, right? And you should be asking your partner for their opinion. If you could agree with them, disagree with them, things like that. You can ask them questions if you want, all sorts of things. So we're just basically aiming on having a good conversation about the things on this piece of paper. We do not have to talk about every single point. You just need to talk about you could either talk about a variety of points, or you could talk about one point but just talk about sub points underneath it, Here, for example, the question, so why might people choose not to eat these things? If you're talking about animals, you could talk about, why do some people choose to eat certain types of animals but not others, right? And then, why don't people eat animals traditionally kept as pets as well? Like, there's lots of different ways you could take the conversation. So just as long as you stay on topic, as long as you are discussing the question and you are keeping to the points, you just have to sort of have a conversation for 2 minutes. And yeah, it's not that big of a deal. And we always get nervous, right? But we're just having a conversation, just like you would have with a friend or just a person that you would meet. So it's not that big of a deal. So yeah, so let's talk about this then. Let's talk about this question. Let's maybe think of some ideas, like why people why might they not eat these things? So yeah, so let's talk about animals maybe really quickly to begin with. Yeah, so why not eat animals? What might their reasons be? Any ideas? Maybe they're Well, I'm vegetarian, so I won't eat animals for that reason. Or vegan as well, right? So maybe they have dietary preferences, basically. Or choices. Yeah, right. So I mean, that's definitely one thing. Does anybody else have any other ideas as well? And you know, lots of people turn vegetarian and vegan maybe because of health reasons, right? I mean, plant-based diets are often considered better for your health, right? Right? They tend to be lower in cholesterol, right? And saturated fats. So basically the bad fats that come from animals, you know? Yeah, so maybe they're looking to cut down on that sort of thing. Yeah, so because they are vegetarian, I think at some point it's not healthy, and just do to consider them alive. Yeah, that too, right? Maybe they're maybe they are concerned about animal rights, right? Yeah, right? So maybe they are opposed to killing animals, right? So as in they're like against killing animals, right? Yeah, but yeah, maybe they're concerned about animal rights or animal welfare as well too. So like the treatment of the animals and how they are kept, things like that, right? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they probably believe that, you know, animals should be treated with respect and compassion, right? Maybe they're against factory farming as well too. So factory farming or like industrial farming where, you know, the animals are kept in little cages and there are too many in the facility and they don't get to move around and things like that. Yeah. So those, you know, those are definitely reasons for which people wouldn't eat meat. Definitely. Religious reasons too, cultural reasons. As I know, some factories that keep them. Yeah, some of the, yeah, they could be quite brutal. Exactly. And very harmful to the environment as well. Yeah. Exactly. So brutal and cruel. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so really great ideas, really great words too. Yeah, brutal, really cruel, and not nice places whatsoever, and definitely harmful to the environment as well. Yeah. Let's talk about sugar for a little bit. Sugar. I definitely know a lot of people who avoid sugar. Oh, sorry. I definitely know a lot of people who avoid sugar. Why might they avoid sugar? Yeah, let me let me know if you know anybody who avoids sugar. I'm trying to think of what the reasons are. I think usually they're concerned about their health. So they kind of avoid sugar for health reasons. Because I suppose a lot of sugar, you know, too much sugar can lead to weight gain, right? And obesity, I suppose, right? So basically that you know, being way too overweight, right? The disease of being too overweight. It's bad for the teeth as well, you know. Maybe they want to avoid dental problems. Oops. Like cavities, for example. Cavities are like the little holes that you get in your teeth caused by sugar, typically. Little holes in teeth caused by sugar as it eats away. Health reasons quite often mentioned nowadays. It's harmful. Personally, I drink coffee without sugar or with a small amount. Yeah. Yeah, I think it definitely can be very harmful to the body, right? I think we're discovering that there are more and more health problems associated with the amount of sugar we're drinking. So a lot of people want to limit their sugar intake, right? So basically they want to limit, they cap or put sort of a just like a only have a certain amount of sugar that they consume. So they want to limit their sugar intake, the amount of sugar they are putting in their body. Yeah, they could also, yeah, that's true. Yeah, maybe they prefer food that's not sweet. That's definitely true. Maybe maybe they even they prefer, you know, bitter coffee, for example. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there are people like that for sure. They'll maybe just trying to cut back on it. So to reduce the amount, right? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Or maybe they might use sugar substitutes too, or even just avoid refined sugar. Because there is natural sugar, but then there's also refined sugar, which is the super processed white sugar, basically, right? So maybe they'll still eat, you know, fruit and honey and stevia instead, right? So those contain sugar, but they're not bad sources of sugar, right? I think it's typically the refined sugars that are a huge problem for people. Definitely. Let's talk about vegetables. We just talked about why people might avoid eating animals. Seems to be plenty of people who also avoid eating vegetables, though, right? Any thoughts on that one? I feel like some people, especially kids, right? They just dislike the taste, maybe. And the texture, right? It can be really hard for some people to, I don't know, they can't tolerate it, you know? So they really dislike it. So I think that could definitely be one reason. Or maybe too, a lot of vegetables, some vegetables like broccoli or kale are bitter. Yeah, so there are some examples too of bitter vegetables, or Brussels sprouts also. Those are pretty bitter. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people don't like vegetables for that reason, right? Or maybe, you know, maybe they don't really know how to cook vegetables. Yeah, maybe they just don't find them to be very delicious, right? Yeah. Or maybe they struggle with how to make them tasty. I definitely think that's an issue too, right? Because if you don't know how to cook something, if you don't know how to season something, it can be really hard to make it palatable. Oh, that's a good word. Yeah, so yeah, if you don't know how to season a food, it can be hard to make it palatable. So to season, you season food. That means to add the seasonings, the salts, the herbs. So seasonings, salt, pepper, herbs, right? Herbs or herbs, depending on your accent, but herbs, I say herbs with a hard H. And it could be hard to make it palatable. Another great, interesting word here. Oops. So something palatable. Basically a way to say that something is really pleasant, has a pleasant taste. So that's a really good word. Yeah. Yeah, so maybe they're not palatable. They don't know how to make them palatable. And yeah, that's a good point too. Maybe they feel that vegetables are not filling. Hayak, I'm good. How are you doing? Feel free to tell me why people may not eat vegetables. We are brainstorming some ideas here. So they feel that vegetables are not filling. Exactly. It doesn't make them feel full. Definitely. Yeah, that's a really good, valid reason. I was thinking one more reason too. About accessibility, right? Because often fresh fruit and vegetables, they can be unaffordable, right? So fresh fruit and vegetables can sometimes be unaffordable, or they can be hard to find in certain places, especially when they are not in season. Yeah. If a vegetable or a fruit is in season, that means that it's being produced during sort of the natural time of the year when it would normally grow. So here, for example, fruits and vegetables only grow during summer, right? Because during the winter you can't grow anything because it's too cold and there's snow, right? So it can be harder to get fresh fruit and vegetables out of season, and if you find them, they'll be more expensive, right? Because they're sent from other parts of the world and things like that, and they become more expensive because of shipping costs and stuff like that. So that could be a reason why people don't eat more fruit or vegetables. So a vegetable, vegetables are countable. Yeah, the word vegetables. The word vegetable is countable. Yeah. Like I would say, for example, do you like vegetables? Yeah. Fruit, however, is uncountable. So for example, I would say, do you like fruit? And we would typically only say fruits if we're talking about different varieties, like different types of vegetables. But even then, though, for me, it sounds a little bit weird when I read or I hear fruits. It's much more common to just hear fruit without an S. So what kind of fruit do you like? Do you eat fruit in the morning? Yeah, I had some fruit earlier today. Yeah. So fruit, uncountable, but vegetables, countable. Yeah. Unless, because my article originally was about insects, let's talk really quickly. Why might people not eat insects? Any thoughts on that one? Also, let me know if people do eat insects where you're from. Here it is pretty rare. I knew one person who would regularly eat insects, but it is not common here at all. Yeah, I would say that it's still kind of considered I would consider here it's considered a bit taboo, I would say, as in it's like it's not sort of culturally acceptable, I would say, or there's some there's stigma around it, maybe. So it would be sort of strange or unappealing, maybe. English is so how to improve my speaking English skill, and how do I get a speaking partner, please? Your class is so nice for me. Yeah, so I have a bunch of well, I have 2 Telegram groups in particular that have people in them, and sometimes people will post and try to find speaking partners that way. And I would love if people did that more often, but they don't. But you can definitely try that. I have no way on Facebook for students to connect to one another to practice, but the Telegram is there. You can definitely try it there. And in the future too, if there are more people, if more people come out and things like that, more people participate, I would also love to be able to arrange speaking practice sessions, probably on Discord. But yeah, I would try the Telegram group, post in the Telegram groups, see if somebody will practice with you that way. You're also more than welcome to book some conversational classes with me. I know that's not always available though because of the costs, but yeah, I would try the Telegram groups, see if you can find somebody that way. And just keep an eye out. Or you could also spread the word too about my classes and things, because if I can get more people on board, I would be happy to arrange some speaking practice sessions on Discord and things like that, so people can get together and connect and talk with one another, because I agree it's really important and people need to do it more often. So yeah, that's what I would say. Okay, so it's not acceptable in my country. They do not look appetizing. Yeah. Yes, that as well too. They do not look appetizing. Yeah, it's not very normal in my country as well. Yes, so something appetizing, something that looks good to eat, right? Yeah, it's a great word. Yeah, I agree with you, right? Yeah, and a lot of people too, like, associate insects with being, you know, dirty, right? Or they're also often considered pests. Pests in many countries, right? Well, just in general, right? I wouldn't say in many countries. I would say everywhere. Insects are considered pests, right? So a pest is something that, you know, bothers you. That bothers you, is maybe destructive or annoying, you know? Yeah. I was thinking too that maybe availability would be a problem too, right? So maybe they don't know how to buy them, you know, or get them, since they're not widely available. So something widely available would be available like everywhere, basically, over a large location. Or a large distance, rather. And probably, you know, recipes would be hard to find, I would think, too. Yeah, so they wouldn't know how to prepare them, right? So lots of reasons why maybe people wouldn't eat insects and things like that, but, you know, maybe perceptions will change, maybe in time, right? Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for coming out to this class. I really appreciate the ideas. Could I text message you in your inbox? Yes, you can send me a message. You send me a message, Ak, and I will respond to you. I can give you information about the groups, and or just more information about how you can find some speaking partners. But yeah, you are welcome to that. Yeah. Oh, what was I gonna say? Yeah, so thank you. Thanks for coming out. Really appreciate it. And thank you so much for your help filling out our notes. So I'm going to put all of the notes into a document. You will have this video as a reference to talk about this later. You know, feel free to get a partner then, you know, and practice discussing this with them. This is kind of an interesting task to discuss with other people. And yeah, so I definitely recommend talking about this. It'd be sort of an interesting conversation. Yeah, so tomorrow I will be having a crossword stream. So if you're not aware, I've been doing these coffee and crossword streams in the morning. At, I believe it's 1300 UTC. So you're more than welcome to come out and do a crossword with me, help me figure it out. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah. So come out for that. And yeah, feel free to, you know, like this, share it, or spread the word. Like I said, if we can get more people out, the better. And if I have more people on board for doing classes and things like that, I would love to be able to arrange some opportunities for us to practice speaking together and things like that. So spread the word. All right. Anyways, I hope you all have a really good rest of your day, and I will talk to you all tomorrow, maybe, potentially, or I will see you in the next live lesson as well. All right. Okay. Bye, everybody. Thanks.